Why? Why do we have to do this again? Why did they have to do three of them? Yes, it ended as bad as I thought. Um, yeah, just shaking my head at this one. Do I even want to review this? Do I just want to sit here and shake my head for 10 minutes? Um, yeah, probably. But let's talk about it. But let's start off with the IMDb plot, which is already pissing me off just reading this. In the series' most brutal chapter, Maya collides with the mass killers and finds the only way out of the nightmare is in. Why? Why? That is terrible. Um, this is the most brutal chapter. No, it's not. Um, Brutal that they make us watch it. Yes. Maybe brutal in the way that we had to watch it. Yes. Brutal in the way that why do we have to watch three of these disastrous movies? Brutal in the way that such a movie that I love the first one and the original, and they just did this to it. Totally unnecessary at the end of the day. Why is all brutal in that fact? Brutal that I had to watch it. Brutal that you guys had to watch it. Props to those who actually suffered through all three of these, like I did. Um, it is such a sad thing. I guess to me it's just very sad. I'm not going to go through, I've probably said it in another review, whatever. If you've heard me talk about The Strangers, whatever, you know how much I love the movie and the importance of it to me. Um, but, to watch them go through this, that makes it even more brutal. It is just brutal for me to watch it and brutal to me to what they did to this and so forth. Um, the expectations were low for this one, and it is just low. And um, I not even going to guarantee that I'm going to be spoiler free here. I'm just going to go for it in my thoughts and feelings here, and a little bit about what's going on here. Obviously, we've seen Maya now survive into the third movie here, and you know where to go. How does she get out? Does she want to get out? She has family that comes looking for her as well. That doesn't go well for them. And the thing they try to do in this movie is kind of give us more information on the strangers and who they are and so forth. But they think they get a little wise with us. And I guess I'm not going to be spoiler free here. So if you haven't seen it and you are, for whatever reason, worried about being spoiler free here, whatever, I'm not going to guarantee anything here. So I'll just say that that's your warning. They try to get creative, and I guess, I don't know if this is where they started it, or this is at what point they decided that this is what they were going to do stranger-wise, with the wording there. And, if this is their big twist on it all and the big reveal or whatever. But, by the time we get to a certain point, later in this movie, we find out, we always think of, or as you watch this movie, you always think of the strangers as being these masked individuals. But basically what they turn it on is that the strangers are truly the people that come to the town. And whoever's in this town are the true strangers. And, I kind of, try to separate that from the original. Try to keep this trilogy in its own. I just don't see how that narrative really fits with the original one. Which, then kind of pisses me off. But, if you keep it in this universe and you think, okay, we're not going to, tie it into the original one. And in this universe that they create, in the story that they create, in the story that they tell about, and what we find out about these strangers, okay, that works. Okay, so they're trying to twist it around. All this time we thought the strangers were these three masked individuals. But no, it's the strangers that come to the town. And it's okay that you kill strangers that come to the town. If you're a tourist and you come to the town, you're a stranger, so it's okay that you die. You just don't kill the locals. You don't kill the people around you. You don't kill the people that live there, work there, and so on. So, the strangers are really the ones getting killed, not the killers. So, okay, you wanted to be wise and you thought that that was, your big trick for this one and whatever. Okay, I'll give you a slight bit of credit for that. But to me, that again takes away from what the original strangers were. People that come and knock at your door, you don't know who they are, and they terrify you and, drive you crazy all night long and just kill you and walk away, and that's it. And instead, you're gonna, take it away that they're not the strangers, it's the people that come to the town because they're dark and creepy because you're a small town and you don't want strangers there. You don't want people you don't know. So it's okay to kill them. No, okay. I don't know about all that. Um, we learn about the strangers and a little bit of what we saw in the second part, the little boy and on the playground, and he ends up, I think it was the girl that he ends up killing or beating up, or no, it was the boy, I don't remember, it's not even important. We see that whole scene there where the kids are on the playground and they're getting jealous, and then they end up beating or killing up someone, and then we find out in this one the relationship between the sheriff and the guy in the mask. That's his son, and we find out he basically got off because he's the sheriff's son, and he basically gets a pass. And the sheriff has been cleaning up his mess all these years, but he's basically a psychopath and he's a serial killer. And the father kind of sets everything in motion by and it kind of in a slight way made me think of Dexter. The father is a cop and he's going to protect his son. He knows his son's a serial killer and he's going to protect him. So are we being totally original within that? Maybe not. But it's okay. It's okay to kill the strangers in town. You just don't kill, locals. So, he kind of, sets that out for his son. But he knows his son, is not always going to contain that and whatever. And he's going to mess up eventually and so forth. So, that puts the father and the sheriff in a bind, in a bad situation, and he has to do stuff he doesn't want to do. Okay. But then, it's all about Maya, and she becomes the only one who's really survived, and only one who's survived to this point, and the only one who eventually gets to see the guy in a really weird scene where he basically takes off the mask, and it's just like, it's okay, I'm not going to kill you here in this time, but you get to see who I am, and we're going to go through a little discussion of that. And, I killed one of yours, you killed one of mine. And so, can we be, killers together and so forth. And, she kind of gets pulled into it. She doesn't really want to, but she's going to get pulled into it. And can she, because she's now killed and so forth to survive, can she just kind of go from killing to survive to be one of us and be a killer too? And we're supposed to see whether she can or she can't and where that goes, and so forth. So yeah, there are going to be some deaths in the movie. Anything outrageous and whatever, not so much. Better than the huge stupid hospital scene that we got in the previous one that just wasted so much time. Again, I think, one of the things I really enjoyed about The Strangers, and enjoyed The Strangers, and especially in the first one, and why it really, even though they did do a sequel to that, but even after that, and one of the things they went, bounds about doing is not revealing them, not knowing who they were, that mystery of who they were, to me, gave it something different and a different feeling. And in this one, they felt like they had to take the mask off and give you more information, and that's how they were going to do this. And why? Because they're not really the strangers. The people that come to the town are strangers. So getting to know these masked people is okay. No, it's not okay. It takes away everything. To me, what I really enjoyed about this movie. So many movies, we see horror where they go out of their way to, show us the killers, show us who they are, show us, why they've done what they've done. In a way, it's okay that you want to kind of show why they've done and they've done. You have to, you're trying to create a trilogy here and something to show, okay, you want to show why they've done what they've done, okay. But, by the end, you've basically unmasked all these people here. And to me, that takes away from it. I don't like it. I'd liked, even though, it was very hard, watching the original. You want to know why. It was, then they make it simple just because you're home, and then they walk away, you're just like, oh my God, but that's so shocking that these three people would just come and do that. And you thought that, maybe there was a religious undertone in it because, those two little boys that came with their pamphlets and so forth. So maybe that had something to do with it. But it was just terrifying because they never unmasked. You never knew who they were. You didn't know, you knew diddly squat about them. You didn't know. They just were there, they did what they did, and they drove away. And then that was, to me, something different and something that was just completely terrifying. Where we see in a lot of horror movies, you get, as the movie goes on, this whole explanation of why the killer is killing, who the killer is, where they came from, are they related to somebody they're killing, did somebody do something to them in their past that's why they did it, and so forth. But no, you just had this standalone movie that these three masked people came and just terrorized the hell out of these people, left them for dead, and moved on. And that was it. But here you do 3 parts and you find out way too much about them and then find out at the end of the day, they're not the strangers, other people are the strangers. Ha! No, 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 just no. Like, no. Way too much information. Didn't want them unmasked. Don't need to know who they are. And didn't need to know this whole flip on the stranger thing. And just to make it even worse, or to make it even more brutal in a way, we're going to twist this weird kind of love story in it. Like, the killer is like, somehow, because the other girl stranger masked person is doing this and loves also killing, and you bond over that, we're going to kiss her through her mask and have this weird, love for her. So then when we put the mask on Maya and whatever, we're going to try to kiss her and love her in the same way, whether you want to call it romantic or just in a bonding over killing kind of thing. And we see how we get the third woman here and end up with 3, and they all going to bond over this. It is just not, like, why? Like, why are we going to do this kissing thing? Why are we going to add this, again, if you want to call it a weird friendship or romance in it? Like, I don't want romance in The Strangers. I mean, yeah, the original one and even the part 1 here had the romance between the couple, but that's the couple. You're supposed to have that, or you can't have that. I don't want to see the masked individuals kissing and having a romantic moment or a weird moment, or that's the way they bond over their killing or whatever. No, I don't want that. No, why did you do that? Like, and then you try to make them terrifying. You make them so much less terrifying if they're going to kiss with each other. Like, just no. Like, no. Why? Like, just knock it off. Like, what? Like, I again, just totally, just blown away of how they just, why they're going to ruin it and why they did this, and just lots of whys and so forth. As you can see, I'm not a fan of these 3 movies. Yes, I had to share them through Promote. It was part of what we did and shared. And whether, regardless of my feelings, if it's horror and I have to share it and promote it, whatever, I will. It doesn't matter whether I like it or not. Promote is separate from it. I always separate that. But as me, the individual, as me who's reviewing it, as me as a fan of The Strangers, the original one, I hate this. I don't like it. And as you guys know, and as you guys see through my reviews, I don't typically do a lot of reviews where I complain and really do reviews. Lots of times when I don't like something, I will just pass on it, especially if it's indie horror. But this is not. This is a big film, big budget, lots of money, big studio behind it. So, I don't really feel bad for ripping it if I have to. And I try to leave that ripping for big studio movies because, if they are going to do it, they should have their big boy pants on. Sometimes it's not the fault of an indie horror that it's bad. Sometimes you can't get the right actors. Sometimes you don't have the budget. Sometimes you just have experienced, inexperienced, writers, directors, actors, whatever. and you trying to do the best that you can. So, it's not within me to just rip you if you do something that's just not good. But here, the quality of it is not bad. The acting, I'm not going to say the acting was spectacular, but it's not terrible. But just, if it was kind of standalone and we had never seen the original Strangers, maybe I wouldn't be so upset about it. Maybe it'd be like, okay, you did what you did there and so forth. But because you've given me something that I liked so much and then just did something so terrible with it, yeah, I'm gonna be mad. Yeah, I'm gonna say why. Yeah, I'm just gonna be like, I'm just gonna say that this was awful and a bad experience 3 times around. Um, and just leave it at that. I think this is the third review for this trilogy, and I just don't know what else more to say more than that I just hated it, and there's nothing that's gonna make me watch any of these 3 movies ever again. And I hope, as far as the Strangers are concerned, they just leave it be. Like, that's it. As far as I'm concerned, the original happened. I'm not hating on the sequel to the original. That had its moments. That was fine. Not the same as the original in my boat, as far as what they did for me and my liking of it. But I was okay with that, and that was fine. But this is a disaster. This is terrible, and I'm not going to recommend it for anything or whatever. I mean, if you want to watch it and you haven't seen it, go for it, watch it. It's fine. But yeah, I'm done with this and done with this story and done complaining about it. Like, I just don't want to anymore. Like, not going to complain about it anymore. This did, and I just, there's other things I could probably complain about in this movie. But yeah, I mean, that's it. I'm not going to waste any more of your time, my time, or whatever. Stick a fork in it. Because it had some blood and guts and whatever, I'll give it 0.5 pools of blood. I always try to award for that. It is slasher in some way. So I will give it 0.5 for that. But that's about it. Just because there was a death in this movie, there was some blood. And that's it. And maybe did have some, even though I don't think it's the most brutal chapter of it, maybe brutal because it comes with a brutal end here of disastrousness, but maybe showed a little bit more tend to the brutal after a disastrous second part. But yeah, just 0.5 pools of blood out of 5. That's it. Close the book on this one. Move on to the next one, or not the next one. Just don't do this. Next movie, we're going to do something original. Let's just stop this. HorrorSquareReviews.blogspot.com is where you find all my reviews, written in videos, certainly tons of video reviews for a while now, so you can like and subscribe to everything else that everybody wants to do here on YouTube. If not, no worries, it's okay. I thank you for your time regardless. Blue Sky Facebook information down below. You can find me there. Talk about other horror movies. If you really, really want to talk about this one, I'll do it. But as you can see, I'm done with it. And definitely in the comment section, again, if there's something you did like, whatever, if you liked it, or something you would want to say about it, and go for it. Otherwise, done with this, moving on, and I'll catch you on the next review, horror fans.